Hello everyone, welcome back to my channel. In today's video, I am making a Father's Day card for my father-in-law, and I'm not sure when I'm going to post this video, so it is either after the new year, so in that case, Happy New Year, or I'm going to post it in November after his birthday. In that case, I hope you are about to have or will have a wonderful Thanksgiving. Here I am showing you that I am using a whole bunch of scrap paper. I recently made some projects for my kids' teachers and a variety of other things, and I have gobs and gobs and gobs of scrap Hammermill cardstock, so today's project was a good use of just a small portion of what I have. I am going to be using my Hammermill cardstock for all of my die cutting today, and I'm also going to be using a gathering of Concord and Ninth inks. I have recently re-inked my ink pads, and so these were all very, very, very juicy. I'm also going to be using some Lesabo cardstock. This is in the color Shiitake, which is just a kind of good, smooth craft cardstock. And then I'm using the Simon Says Stamp Fractal Leaves stamp set. I'm showing you the Simon Says Stamp sentiment label dies, but I don't end up using those today. This set is from Honeybee, and I apologize, I don't know what it's called, but it has coordinating dies for all of those larger scripty sentiments and also shadow layers for those, which is very, very cool. I really, really like that. I'm going to be using the Happy and the Scripty Happy, the Scripty Large Happy, and then the small kind of block font Birthday. First things first, I'm going to do a whole bunch of stamping. I broke out with my kind of regular sized Missy, just because this size of scrap paper I was using, and I'm going to do some heat embossing today. I don't know if this stamp set is still available. I don't even know if it had coordinating dies, but I don't have them. So I end up trying to see if my brother Scan & Cut will cut these out. I was kind of concerned that the scanner wouldn't see it or it would reflect weird with the heat embossing, that it would just kind of reflect all weird and wouldn't work. But I am very happy to report it worked wonderful. I had the older brother Scan & Cut that you had to manually change the dial and such. It recently died, and I got the newer model, and I absolutely love it. It is so convenient and works really, really well. So like I said, I am going to be doing some heat embossing. So I have my Versamark ink, and I'm going to be using Ranger Princess Gold embossing powder today. I was worried that with all of these kind of deep, rich jewel tones I was going to be doing some ink blending with, that black lines would get lost, and that kind of a brighter gold, or excuse me, kind of a deeper gold would get lost also. So I felt like this gold was a perfect combination of not being so brassy, but also not being so dark that it got lost. I do use my Simon Says Stamp powder embossing tool just to get rid of some of the oils and ensure that my image is embossed crisply, and I only get embossing powder where I want it. So there is my Versamark ink pad, and I'm going to line up, I think I end up doing like 6 sheets total, 6 or 8 sheets total, which is way more than I needed. But since I was making these and I already had these out, I use the stamp quite often, particularly when I'm making either masculine cards or cards that I need to be gender neutral. I quite often reach for this stamp set. Anytime I am inspired by some other card that I see on Pinterest or YouTube that is using leaves, my mind immediately goes to this stamp set. It's just very versatile. It has a good variety of images. Just the style of it lends itself to modern designs, or it can lend itself to even watercolors. I've done that before with it. It's just a very, very versatile stamp set. But any stamp set that is leaves in your stash, or if you wanted to use flowers instead of leaves, you absolutely could. But this is for a man. Like I said in the beginning, this is for my father-in-law, so I stuck with these leaves. And I am going to ink these up twice, and then I am sprinkling on the Princess Gold embossing powder on to each of them. I do dip them about twice just because I felt like that gave me better coverage. And then I'm going to continue this process through all of them. Once I've stamped and poured on my embossing powder on all of these, I wanted to have the Happy be in the same gold as my embossing, as my leaves. So a little trick for that, if you are really wanting to have something match or coordinate very, very well, make your own cardstock. So in this case, I'm making what would be a specialty cardstock. So I am just squishing on this Versamark ink onto a scrap piece of cardstock that I know will fit my die that I'm going to use. And then I'm just sprinkling that on there and tapping off the excess. And this same process would apply if you wanted to have a piece of colored cardstock that matched. All you would do is either ink blend or squish down direct to paper, like what I did with the Versamark ink pad, onto a piece of scrap paper, and then you have cardstock that you know will match because it's the same thing. I don't know if you've seen any of my videos before, but I have discovered personally, and I don't know if it's just my heat gun, if it's how close I get to my paper, if it's my environment, my craft room and the humidity, or I don't know what it is, but I have discovered that for me, I get the best heat embossing results when I heat from the back of the paper instead of directly from the front. Although I did get kind of lazy and end up switching toward the end of these. Like I said, I did like 6 or 8 of these pieces of paper. And I ended up heating it from the front, and it did fine. So maybe it was the particular powder I was using. I don't know. But if you are struggling and you're not pleased with your heat embossing, try heating it from the back. See if that gives you some better results. Here I'm just showing you that I used I used some tweezers to hold that cardstock in place, and then I'm heat setting that just like I do anything else. Metallics are really easy to know when they are done. They go from grainy and dull to shiny and smooth. So when everything was shiny and smooth, I knew everything was done. The next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to take this nutmeg ink from Concord and Ninth and a blending brush, and I'm just going to give this shiitake cardstock some depth. I'm almost giving it an ombre look, but I didn't want it to be just plain brown. I wanted there to be some interest. I wanted there to be almost like a gradient, just to give it something extra, I guess you could say. So when I was pleased with the ink blending, I cleaned off my mat, and then I took some of the leaves and just figured out how many I would need to ink blend. The rest of those I'm going to put in the back of the pocket and use them another time. And so what I'm going to do is I'm going to take all of these leaves, I know I'm going to use them, and I'm going to do some very simple kind of messy ink blending. The beauty about doing ink blending when you're trying to do fall colors is that brown is okay. Now, if this was something that I was really concerned about having browns, I would be more conscious of the colors I was putting next to each other. But in this case, browns are great. The colors I am using are all, again, from Concord and Ninth. I have Rainforest, Parsley, Avocado, Cayenne, and Stardust. And I'm just going around randomly. Some of the leaves, the bigger ones, will get all of the colors. Some of them won't. Some of them will just get a couple of them. Because we have heat embossed them, that gold heat embossing is going to resist the ink. So you're going to get some ink on there, and we will deal with that in just a minute. But as far as this is concerned, it doesn't matter. Just put the color down, and we can kind of buff off the color that is sitting on top of that embossing later. So this is with them all ink blended, and what I'm going to do is I'm going to very lightly, and I mean very lightly, spritz a clean paper towel with just clean water, and I'm going to rub over these leaves, and that's going to bring back the shine of the embossing powder, and it's going to get any of that excess ink off, and then these are all ready to go onto our project. And then I will just clean off my mat with some stamp cleaner, and then we are good to go. And that is the Waffle Flower Grip Mat. I don't think I said that, but that is the 9x9, 8x8, something like that, Waffle Flower Grip Mat. I wanted this cardstock to have just a little bit more interest, so I am going to take clean clear water from a spray bottle, and I'm just going to do little tiny partial presses of this water. And this Concord and Ninth ink is reactive with water, so I'm going to just randomly kind of do half squirts, leave that on there for just a minute, and then take a clean paper towel and kind of sop up any water that is remaining on the surface. That just gives a little more interest, something a little more fun to look at. And then it's going to be time to go ahead and start gluing down our images. I'm just going to use liquid glue to glue these down, although if you wanted to, you could die cut extras if you had the dies, or you could pop them up with foam. I'm going to flip it to the back because I find that it's easier for me, and I'm just going to take a long pair of scissors and snip off any excess leaves that are hanging over the edge. And then this is ready to be glued to our card base. You could have done all of this on your card base, but I am pretty messy, I know myself, and so I know that I would want the back of the card to be clean, so I did this on a separate panel. But I'm going to glue this with liquid glue directly to our card base. I did go ahead and die cut out that happy using the die set, and I had one little section that was sticking. I should have ran my die forward and backward. My plates are kind of worn on my little die cut machine here, but it comes out and it's just fine. And then I did end up going ahead and die cutting that out 4 or 5 more times, just so that I could get a little bit more of a stacked look. I did die cut that out of white, and I kind of think I should have done it out of a brown. I had scraps of that shiitake cardstock, and I think I should have stacked them with that, but the white's fine. And here I'm just showing you that I'm putting little tiny dots of the liquid glue all over, and then I will stack all of them together, ending with the gold embossing one. That liquid glue just gives you a little extra wiggle room as you're trying to align those dies. So I did decide that I was just going to go ahead and stamp that birthday directly onto the card base instead of getting a sentiment label die, although you absolutely could. And you could do it out of a colored cardstock or out of white, or you could ink blend it, whatever you chose. But I decided to break that to get the nutmeg ink back out and just stamp that directly onto the card base. And then I will, with liquid glue, again, glue down the happy right above it. I thought I was going to have to stamp this out twice, but my ink pad was super, super juicy, so I did not have to do that. Here I've taken liquid glue, put that on the back of the happy, and am nestling that right above the birthday. And then this card is complete. I would normally add gems or pearls. I would probably add glitter, but I decided since this was for my father-in-law, he probably would not want that. So I did see that I had a little bit of glue kind of oozing out. It was probably not going to be a big deal, but it was kind of bugging me. So I did take a craft pick and just kind of scrape up as much of that as I could. But my glue dries clear and matte, so it's probably not a big deal. You could also use, instead of liquid glue, you could die cut your dies from adhesive sheets. That would probably be a good option, or you could run it through a stick and maker. But I do like the liquid glue just for the wiggle room. So that is it. That is the card complete, and it is partially off screen. That's awesome. Sorry about that. But I do appreciate you spending time with me today. I hope you felt inspired, and we'll see you tomorrow.